Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Welcome back once again to our ongoing series on the glories of our most beloved Sri Vrindavan Dham. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pashtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashchacha Deshatarine. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we are continuing with our mini-series on Stimulation for Ecstatic Love, and this will be part 42. Part 42. For this lecture, I've chosen a very interesting and you could say a beloved item, namely the dust of Sri Vrindavan Dham, known affectionately by devotees of the Lord as Braj Renu. I say affectionately because there's a well-known saying in Vrindavan that there are 5 personalities who grant eternal residence in Braj. And I'm sure most of you know. Govardhan Hill, Yamuna Devi, Gopishwara Mahadev, Vrinda Devi, and number 5, Braj Renu, the dust of Vrindavan. Now, of course, an uneducated or uninformed person may question, what's so special about the dust of Vrindavan? Because, after all, dust is such an ordinary thing. However, the dust of Vrindavan is not ordinary. It's extraordinary. First of all, it's special because it's mixed with the impression of Lord Krishna's lotus feet, and Balaram's lotus feet, and Srimati Radharani's lotus feet, and all the residents of Vrindavan, as they traverse the Vrindavan forest during the Lord's pastimes. Srimad Bhagavatam 10:68-37 says about Krishna's lotus feet, the dust of Krishna's lotus feet, which is the source of holiness for all places of pilgrimage, is worshipped by all the great demigods. The principal deities of all planets are engaged in his service, and they consider themselves most fortunate to take the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna on their crowns. So when Krishna walks around Vrindavan, his lotus feet are impressed in the dust. So the dust is something very special. But not only because of that. Another reason that Vrindavan dust is special is because, well, it's made from Chintamani stones. Dust ultimately comes from stones. So Braj Renu is made from Chintamani stones. Brahma Samhita 529 describes the special nature of Chintamani stones. We all know this verse. Chintamani prakata sadamasu kalpa viksha lakshar viteshu shurabir abhipalyantam lakshmi sahasra satasambramya sevimanam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. Now in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport to that verse, which Prabhupada recorded originally in our movement on a record album, he further clarifies the nature of the Chintamani stone from which the dust of Vrindavan is made. He wrote, by the word Chintamani is meant transcendental gem. Just as Maya builds this mundane universe with the 5 material elements, so the spiritual potency has built the spiritual world of transcendental gems. The Chintamani, which serves as material in building of the abode of the Supreme Lord of Goloka, is a far rarer and more agreeable entity than the philosopher's stone. Such beautiful, elegant writing of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Now, in medieval Europe, people would sometimes speak, or let's say fantasize about a philosopher's stone, which could apparently turn iron into gold, or in other words, satisfy all one's desires. However, the Chintamani stone, or the dust thereof, is infinitely more valuable, because it can be instrumental in satisfying our deeper spiritual desires to serve the divine couple, Shri Radha and Krishna. I was listening on a morning walk in Mayapur on April 17th, 1975. Srila Prabhupada said, if you want something from ordinary dust, you cannot get it, because it's material. But in Vrindavan, even from the dust, if you want something, that dust will deliver it immediately for the service of Radha and Krishna. I came across another wonderful poet. His name was Ramdas, Brajbasi poet. He very beautifully describes the potency of Vrindavan dust, of Braj Renu, in one of his poems. It's very nice. He writes, as the sun and the moon complete the cycle of day and night, as fire and water make complete the nature of this world, in the same way, the dust of Vrindavan and the dark waters of the Jamuna River bring to completion the cycle of birth and death and ignite pure love for Krishna. Beautiful poetry. So therefore, throughout our scriptures, great devotees write about and worship the dust of Vrindavan. Just the other day I was reading in Lalita Madhava, Act 9, entitled Chitta Darshana, means looking at pictures. In verse 148, our beloved Srila Rupa Goswami writes, on this earth planet, the best place is Bharat Varsha. In Bharat Varsha, the best district is Mathura Puri. In Mathura Puri, the best place is Vrindavan Forest. In Vrindavan Forest, the best place is along the shore of the Jamuna. On the shore of the Jamuna, the best place is the arena of the Rasa dance. The Rasa dance arena is filled with dust that touched the 2 feet of Lord Krishna, the lover of the gopis. Therefore the great sage Narada worships those particles of dust with all of his heart. Thank you to Srila Rupa Goswami. Now, another poet, Paramananda Das, who I often quote, says in one of his poems, how can a poet describe the great fortune of Braja's children, who always play in the dust of Braj, where Krishna has walked barefoot in ecstasy, in which Balaram has fought wrestling battles with Madhu and Sridham, in which Krishna killed all the demons, where Sri Radha played with her Sakis, and where she soaked the dust of Vrindavan with her tears of love, in which the countless cows of Maharaj Nanda run in ecstasy, where Lord Shiva resides as his service, and where the Lord of the 3 worlds plays happily. O brother, Paramananda says, place the dust of Braj on your forehead, for it is the greatest wealth of all for the devotees of the Lord. Now, just how that Chintamani stone or its dust, Braj Renu, manifests, or let us say looks like in Vrindavan, for those who have transcendental vision, is very beautifully described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Braj Riti Chintamani. Braj Riti Chintamani, verses 13 to 17. It's a little bit of a long description, but it's just pure nectar. He writes, in some places, the ground of Braj is made of camphor dust. In some places, it is saffron. In some places, it is made of ground musk. And in some places, it is made of the aromatic substances used in religious ceremonies. In some places, the ground of Braj is made of emeralds. And in other places, it is made of a variety of precious gems. In some places, the ground of Braj is a golden Jambu river, and in other places, it is made of sapphires. In some places, the ground of Braj is made of emeralds, and the trees, bushes, and creepers are made of gold. In other places, the ground is gold, and the trees are emeralds. In some places, the ground of Braj is made of rubies, and the trees and vines are crystal. In other places, the ground is crystal, and the trees and creepers are rubies. Very detailed description of the Chintamani stones, or Brajrenu. So, hearing like this, we should be eager to obtain some of that dust, that Brajrenu. Actually, it's recommended that when one goes to Vrindavan, the very first thing he or she should do is actually roll in the dust of Braja. Srila Prabhupada makes that very clear. He writes in chapter 37 of Krishna book, one who intends to visit Vrindavan should follow in the footsteps of Akrura and always think of the pastimes and activities of the Lord. And as soon as one reaches the boundary of Vrindavan, he should immediately smear the dust of Vrindavan all over his body without thinking of his material position and prestige. Actually, one cannot go to Vrindavan by purchasing a ticket. The process of going to Vrindavan is shown by Akrura. Now, I know in the old days, when we go to Vrindavan in the 70s and the 80s, we would actually do that. We'd actually get out of the car and roll in the dust. So perhaps we should continue with that tradition when we get to Vrindavan. And what exactly is the result of rolling in that dust of Vrindavan? Why should we do it? Well, again, that's described by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his Braj Riti Chintamani. Therein he writes, if you roll about in the ground of Vrindavan, then you will attain an exalted position like the beautiful pearl necklace strung by Sri Krishna and worn by Sri Radha. This exalted fate will not be difficult for you to attain. I'm going to recite that again because it's so important. If you roll about in the ground of Vrindavan, then you will attain an exalted position like the beautiful pearl necklace strung by Sri Krishna and worn by Sri Radha. This exalted fate will not be difficult for you to attain. Can't wait to get to Braj and roll in the dust. Now the glories of this dust, this transcendental dust of Braj, can be even more appreciated by an old custom that I was reading about, that in the days of yore in Vrindavan, whenever a sadhu or a devotee would pass away, the Brajabasis would first smear his body with the dust of Vrindavan mixed with the water of the Jamuna river. In such cases, the Brajabasis never said that such a sadhu or devotee had left his body or passed away, departed. Rather, they would say in the old days that that person attained the sacred dust of Braj for eternity. If you heard maybe someone had passed away, you asked one sadhu, what happened to such and such? Oh, he attained the sacred dust of Braj for eternity. It means he left. Such culture. To prepare for leaving this world, one anonymous Brajbasi poet has written very nicely. Dear friend, for meeting with the Lord at the end of life, take bath in a sacred river, comb your hair, and dress accordingly to meet your all-attractive Lord. Of utmost importance, don't forget to smear the dust of Vrindavan on your body, because that dust will be the source of all your good fortune. Throw a handful of Braja's dust high in the air on the path of meeting your beloved Krishna before you leave this body. Hare Krishna. Now again, in the olden days, knowing the potency of the dust of Vrindavan, the devotees who were residing or who lived at Govardhan Hill, they used to celebrate a festival known as Braj Luti Duli. Braj Luti Duli. We should revive this as well. It means the festival of throwing dust. During this festival, which took place on the day of the first Ekadasi in the month of Kartik, these Govardhan Vasis, these Brajabasis, they would sing the names of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, Radha and Krishna, while throwing the soft, sandy dust of Govardhan Hill on each other. And I was reading they would also throw it high in the sky, which gave the impression like, how's it said, like a rain of dust. A rain of dust. We have raindrops of water, but these sadhus, they took relish in, a rain of dust. And after that, they would do parikrama of Govardhan Hill, and finally take bath in Radhakund and Shamakund. Again, so rich was the culture of Vrindavan. We have to keep these things. This is our tradition. We shouldn't lose our tradition. So because we have 2 or maybe 3 more lectures on the glories of Braj Renu, I'm going to finish today with a poem, lots of poets today, a poem by the poet named Nagari Das. Nagari Das. He was briefly a Rajput king who sacrificed his whole kingdom. He just walked away one day from his kingdom to Vrindavan to do what? To do bhajan. Basically to sit under a kalpavriksha tree and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Actually, we gave, I remember now, an entire lecture about him in our series on historical Vrindavan. So one of his poems is called, very simply, Meditation. And this, forthwith, this is real meditation, Prabhu's. And it goes as follows, so beautiful. O my mind, always worship the dust of Vrindavan. When in the mornings the maidens of Braj sweep the front yards of their houses, the golden hue of that dust appears like clusters of golden clouds. When peacocks sing and the sky showers with rain, the beautiful fragrance of the rain soaks the dust of Braj, thus attracting the minds of all the residents of Vrindavan. When the cows are running back home in the evenings, the whirlwind of the dust of Braj smears everyone's bodies, thus taking away all of their sins. When the sunlight shines on the dust of Braj, the dust appears like gold, melted in love for Sri Krishna. O my mind, always reside in the dust of Braj, which is the only wealth left in this present age. The poet Nagari says, sacrifice everything for the smallest particle of Braj Renu and place it lovingly on your forehead. Hare Krishna. All glories to Braj Renu. Thank you, Prabhu. As mentioned, we'll be back again next Friday with part 2 about the glories of Braj Renu. Again, I was starting my research. I thought how much I'll find. I found an unlimited treasure chest of information and glorification of Braj Renu. So I'll be happy to share it with you next Friday. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, the revealer of the Dham. Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Shri Krishna Balaram ki, Shri Shri Radhashama Sundar ki, Vrindavaneshwari Shrimati Radharani ki, Braj Renu ki, Mayapur Dhama ki, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki, Shri Krishna Sankirtan Yagya ki, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Jai Jai Sri Sri Radhe.